Hi everyone. My job today is to bring you to the future of IoT and data protection. My job is to explain to you what are the challenges, but also what are the opportunities, and how much AXA is preparing itself for all those questions. I would like to start by saying that when we talk about IoT and data protection, what does it really mean in the EU? And I will really focus on the EU perspective, because then Paul can bring you the US perspective, and then we might have a very interesting debate on comparing also the framework. And I think the answer to what does it really mean in the EU is it's not only about a technological or data debate. It's much more. Because first of all, when you're talking about sensors and interfaces, you need to think that it's not only a device, it's not only a sensor, it's an architecture you have around it. And it means it's a governance of humans taking decision when it comes to these architectures. How is it maintained? What are the standards, the technical standards applied? And this is why today there are a lot of discussion at EU level inside what is called the digital single market to define the rule of the game, to define who gets access to which type of non-personal data, under which condition, and what can be made out of this data. So for instance, if you have a sensor in the street counting how many cars pass by, they are writing today the rule of the game, what will come out of these sensors and what we'll do with these sensors. And it's not a technological issue. It's a question of asymmetry of information, it's a power issue, it's a question of the role of platforms, the importance of the cloud. The second thing I want to say is we have value in the European Union, and trust, data protection, the right to a personal life that fits our own values means that it's about the data protection regulation. And the European Union has decided when it comes to personal data to have new rights for the citizens of the EU, wherever they sit in the world. And those new rights are very interesting. For instance, you could have the right to oppose a data treatment. So you can say, okay, you can collect my date of birth, or you can collect the data of this sensor in my house, which is kind of a personal data, for instance, it's my own temperature, but I have the right to decide in which algorithm this data will go. There is also the right to portability. I can decide, I can give my consent, explicit consent, for the portability of this data. So it's not only about non-personal data, it's about personal data, and it's more and more difficult to make the difference between the two, because as a lot of researchers have showed us, you can find out who are the person beyond some data, even if they look as if they were non-personal data. And the third thing is the whole framework is about ethics. The more the European Union is working on data, the more they're creating new bodies responsible for the ethics of algorithm and what they call responsible AI. So this is very important for us as well, and AXA Research Fund has decided to fund research on this topic. So what I will do today, having set this framework, which is not only about technology, but about legal, about social, economic, and ethical aspect, I would like to guide you into this value chain of IoT data in insurance. So I will start with the input. What are the data selection? What is the input? What is the data getting in the model? And I will explain all the questions raised. Then I will focus on the algorithmic process, the data treatment, the machine learning. And then I will explain the outcome, because what is very important is what it means for the customer tomorrow. So let me start with the data getting in. I already said that it's very blurred now, the difference between personal and non-personal data. But I would like to say that today, the first topic is about access rights. For instance, tomorrow we will be in driverless cars, or even if they're not driverless, they will be connected cars. So the question is, who has access to the data of the car? Today, car manufacturers want to have the access to the data of the car and decide what they do with the data. And today, many citizens claim, my car, my data. I want to decide what my data is and where it goes. And this is something that insurers are very interested in, because we believe as well our customers should be able to decide what is happening with their data. And we believe that to be able to cover and to insure driverless car, we will need access to the data, because only with the data can we learn about incidents, accidents, and have the right price for the right use of the car. So very important to know who gets access to data. The second big question about the data getting in is that there are rules of the game. When you are an insurer, for instance, you have rules in the European Union. You do not use gender to price when you do a car insurance product. Okay, it's forbidden by law. Great, so in a statistical approach, you can always say, okay, I do not put gender in the model. But today, the more you will do machine learning, the more you will have many other types of data getting in, such as the color of the car. And some data getting in can be a proxy of something that you're not letting in the model for legal reason. And this is a big question, because you could guess the gender of the person, even if really formally the data getting in is not the gender of the person. So you see that the change in technologies question the types of legal framework that can apply, not only for the right of access, but for the inference. And the third thing that the European Commission is really working hard on is what they call safety of apps. And there are very famous example that a lot of insurers know, that you are in Italy in a small village and the car is talking to you or your app and saying, in 500 meters, please turn left. And you turn left, but it's not a street. There are steps, okay? And your car is stuck in the step. And then the person say, I didn't do it, the app told me. The app told me. And then the problem is who is liable? Because, where does the data come from and which decision was triggered? That's a big question. And they are really now organizing consultation on this topic to identify when you have IoT and when you have complex sensor talking to apps, talking to a cloud, and talking to a human, at the end, who will be responsible when we talk about the data getting in? Now I continue the travel, and I'm talking to now the machine learning or the algorithmic approach dealing with the data. And here too, many questions for the future. First of all, what is called dynamic analysis. So more and more, we will do real-time, continued analysis of the data. And this is very interesting because you can understand the behavior of people much more closely. You can understand what they do, what they don't do, and so on. So really important to know that we will have a shift from a static approach of a data set or a statistical table to a dynamic approach of all those IoT systems bringing up data and changing them. But then it's also a very big question, because if you move to machine learning, you train an algorithm on a data set. So if the data is always changing, you have new questions. How much shall you retrain the algorithm? What is the appropriate frequency? Because, of course, there is a risk that the situation of your customer has changed between yesterday and today. If you still use the algorithm trained on the old data set, will it be unfair to the customer? On the other hand, you cannot retrain every day, every hour, on every data set, every algorithm, and so on. So this is how do you include this dynamic aspect. And dynamic aspect means also some algorithm can deviate. And there is this famous example of a chatbot who became a racist just because the interaction he had with people trained him to be racist somehow. So then it's a question, how do you control, when you have dynamic pricing, how do you control for the deviation of your algorithm? And finally, and this is everywhere in the press, people are talking about the black box effect of AI, or the black box impact of algorithm. What do they mean? They mean that the more you go into deep learning techniques, the less you can really explain the variable of your model. When you have a statistical model, you can really say, okay, the 10 variable I've used is, I don't know, how old is the car, when have I learned to drive, and so on. The more you shift to a technique which is not statistically driven, but it's more towards deep learning, the less control you have on the constructions of the variable of your model. And then it's very important to know, how do I control but also how do I explain? How do I explain not only to the people working at AXA, the basis of the model they use, but also to the end customer? And if we go to the last part of the equation, the impact it has for someone in his home. Maybe the home is connected, and many devices or sensors might be in this home, in the bedroom, in the kitchen, in the living room. And then it raises many questions for the person. The first question that the European Data Protection Supervisor Ethical Board is raising today is, how do we make a difference for a customer between discrimination and a segmentation? Because if you have different types of risk, it's normal that you have a segmentation. That's the business of insurance. But how do you make the difference between this and what they call an implicit discrimination? Someone who gets discriminated just because, for instance, of a bias in the model. Second thing they say is, okay, you might have automated decision-making process. That's great. But is it always fair to your customer? First question. And does the customer know if it's a human or a machine that takes the decision? So this is the type of question they have. And they have started to point at certain problems. For instance, Uber has a system which is completely automatic. The more requests for cars, the higher the price. And there were terrorist attacks, and a lot of people wanted Uber because they wanted to escape the scene, And the price was so high and getting higher and higher and higher. And authorities tell Uber, okay, maybe automatic pricing is not enough in those type of situations. Maybe you need a human that says, okay, we have an emergency, it's a crisis mode, and maybe the pricing model needs to be adapted to this particular situation. Liability. I always think that the responsibility is getting difficult because of the dilution and the complexity of the architecture. And this is very tricky because we will have cyber attacks. We know that. And the more the device will be connected to algorithm and maybe pricing afterwards, the more the cyber attack, which had limited effect before, can have a big effect, a physical effect on what's happening in your home, but also on your reputation and so on. And here we have a double responsibility as insurer, is first of all, be really focused on our own cybersecurity, but also think about how we can ensure cybersecurity of people around us. And if new products and services can be developed for this very specific ecosystem with a lot of sensors connected and triggering decisions. Geography. And this is something which will be a very good transition to the second speaker following me, Paul Ohm, because we will see that there are local variations in the way we deal with those questions. Regulating software is difficult. Regulating a code is difficult. And humans in different settings, so in Asia, in the US, in Europe, have started to think about it, but they do not have the same process or the same types of law they use to regulate the code. And this is a fascinating topic, which I'm sure we will have some comments later on. But geography will matter, because on the other side, when we talk about a blockchain or AI, it's global. It's everywhere. And those technology, it's very difficult when you have a global system, a global technology, to adapt it in the use, in the local context of the regulation. So we have this tension between local variations and global standards when it comes to this IoT. And finally, a lot of questions, because we live on the markets and the competition is very harsh. And to be good, you need to have the right price at the right moment. And there is kind of the race to the bottom, because maybe the more ethical rules we will have, the less we will have customer. So there is a question about, can we just, as a company, set up rules for ourselves? Or do we need to talk to the whole industry and define the rule of the game so that it's fairer, it's transparent, and it's clear for the customer? So what could be rule of the game? There are many discussions at the moment in different sectors. Those discussions are triggered by the political and media debate, and I would like to share some of those questions with you. You must know that AXA is taking part today in the consultation of CNIL. So CNIL is the French authority in charge of data protection. This consultation is about ethics of algorithm, and we have currently debate on what should be the rule of the game. First thing we're talking about is transparency. How do we explain to a customer what we do in a transparent manner without putting our own business secret at risk? Second, explainability. How do we explain the algorithmic choices to the business people, to the agent, to the broker, and at the end to the customer? And there are a lot of work on how to visualize a decision which was data-driven. And at the Data Innovation Lab, they're working with INRIA and with many other researchers to find out how you explain an algorithm. Loyalty. This is how you make sure that the algorithm do what it says and said what it do, and that there is not a hidden thing processed after the sensors. Accountability. Who is responsible for what when there is a problem? And acceptability. How we make sure that people have a fair and socially accepted treatment, and that we do not end up in 5 years having people who refuse to use certain sensor or who refuse to use Internet of Things because they feel that it's not fair to their family or to their life. So those principles are today just discussions. We are in the phase of thinking about how do we bring the rights or values in the code. And it's a big, big question if you can encode ethics. And the IEEE is actually working on those topics to know how do you cover or how do you regulate with classical rule of law and when code is law. And for instance, and we will talk about it later, blockchain is a typical example of the border between rule of law and code is law. So there are a lot of things happening in the EU, and I would like to say that it's about privacy and personal data protection. It's more and more about ethics of algorithm. It's more and more about liability, who is liable, and it's more and more about protecting the cybersecurity of the European Union. And the European Union is now reframing the role of its agency in charge of cybersecurity. And the objective is that we are, as a whole, cyber resilient. And cyber resilient means protecting hardware and software, but also means changing behavior of people, and it might also mean developing insurance products so that people are covered for cyber risk. So as you see, it's a whole design of many, many first institutions, many regulations, and many, at the moment, consultation and communication. What is very interesting is that this is often taking place in open framework, where everyone can contribute, both the citizen and the firms, and explain what they expect for tomorrow as rule of the game. So, foresight of data in the EU, and I would like to start my conclusion. There are many things that we'll need to solve. The question of fragmentation of data standards versus an enhanced operability and seamless customer service. There is a tension here. A second tension is IoT exploitation, protecting our business secret, and we have the right to keep the recipe of our algorithm for ourselves. But on the other side, we want transparency, and customers want to be empowered. They want to know what we do with their data. And this is why we are thinking about what it means to give data back to a customer, what it means to explain, to be transparent, while still protecting the work we do at AXA. Then there is encoding ethics or relying on legal framework. And this tension is very complex because the border between the two is blurring. And finally, the question of do we move ahead with soft deontological charter, with people taking commitment, or will they be hard law when it comes to this shift towards IoT and data protection? And today we don't know. Today we are experimenting. Today we are exploring. And I would like to stop there, saying that there is one thing that we do at AXA to learn about all those topics. It's something called the Data Privacy Advisory Panel. It's a group of 8 experts that are legal experts, IT experts, we have a philosopher, we have former regulators. And what we do is we sit with them and we exchange thoughts and ideas on how we can be better prepared to those challenges. The role of this panel is to anticipate and to take the right and appropriate action so that we have an alignment of interests between what we do for our customer, what we do as an industry, and what will come up for the society. And I thank you for your attention.
Mm-hmm.